Okay, the first step of this process is to 3D print all of your pieces before you begin anything else. Okay, next up, we're going to begin assembling the base plate. So to assemble the base plate, you're going to take all of the pieces and snap them together like a puzzle. As you can see here, we're doing that with the very last piece of the base, but it's the same process for each of them. You place them next to each other, snap them together. There may be a tight fit, so you can use a hammer to hammer them into place if needed. The next step is to add the brass threaded inserts. To do this, you're going to keep the base on its back so that the holes are down. And you can see that you're just going to put these inserts into the holes in the print and then hammer them down until they're flush with the bottom of the base plate. After this, you can flip it back over and get ready to start your next step. So the next step is attaching the motor mount and the C-beam together. The first thing you're going to do is remove the C-beam lower plate that you can see sitting on top here, and you're going to place that on top of the support as shown, ensuring that the holes are aligned. The next thing you're going to do is screw the included C-beam screws through alternate holes on the sides of the support, loosely threading through the aluminum slot nuts. Then you're going to thread the slot nuts onto the C-beam as shown below, and you're going to tighten the bolts once the C-beam is fully slid into place. Next, you're going to pull the threaded C-beam shaft through the center hole using the coupler to join this with the stepper motor shaft. You're then going to use the two long bolts to thread through the stepper motor supports and C-beam to secure the motor in place. The next step is to attach the motor mount to the base plate. And to do this, you're going to use a screwdriver just to make sure your holes are aligned. And then you can thread your screws. They're going to go through the mount into those brass inserts that we put in the previous step. And you're just going to screw all of these down. You can see here the coupler that we were talking about in the last video that connects the motor to the shaft. So this coupler has holes in it where you can send screws through that tighten it down, and it connects with this shaft above. So the next step is to attach the bearing base to the C-beam. And the C-beam will already have a mount on it that you can screw these into. As you can see, it has screws going through the sides and then down through the top. You want to make sure that the side with the cutout, as you can see here, is slid down so that it will go around those bolts, and then you screw everything together. So our next step is to add the Lazy Susan bearings on top of this. You're going to first place washers on the 4 holes of this plate. Now you're going to place the first bearing onto that base plate, aligning the 4 holes on its inner ring with the base plate holes. And you want to make sure that the countersunk sign in the inner ring should be facing downwards. You're now going to add 4 more washers to the interior holes. And after you have added these, you're going to add the next bearing. So on this next bearing, when you put it on, you want to make sure that the countersunk holes are facing upwards on the interior rings. Now you're going to thread the black oxide flathead screws through the 4 holes in the inner ring of both bearings and the base plate. And once you get them through, you're going to tighten them with the associated nut. So this is the nut that you're going to use to put on the bottom of the screws to hold it in place. You want to get it finger tight for now, and later on we will tighten it down completely. And you're going to repeat this with all of them. Next, we're going to attach the arms to the ring gear. The first thing that we want to do is thread 2 of the hex head bolts through each slot in the ring gear. As you can see here, you thread them through the bottom of it, and then you're going to flip it over and place the arm into this. Now you're going to use a washer around the bolts and then tighten them down with the associated nut. And you will repeat this for all of the arms, including the agitator arm. The next thing that we're going to do is assemble the agitator arm. You're first going to insert the motor shafts through the top hole of the agitator motor support, like so. And then you're going to secure the motor to the support using M3 screws. You first want to get 2 or 3 of them tightened in somewhat, but not completely all the way down. That way you can make sure everything aligns. And once you have all 4 screws in there and aligned, you can tighten them down the rest of the way. You can now attach one side of the coupler to the motor shaft, and you want to make sure that you tighten the set screws to ensure that the coupler is firmly secured to the shaft. Now you're going to place a spacer on the hook followed by the lid and thread this through the middle hole of the agitator arm through that spacer, and then insert it into the open side of the coupler and make sure to tighten the coupler to secure the hook in place. Now align the 2 holes in the motor supports with the corresponding holes in the agitator arm. Put a washer on it and then put the screw through and fasten with the nut. Now attach the cassette holder onto the hook. Now we're going to put together the ring gear. So we want to use the puzzle piece fits to attach each ring gear together, forming a circle and ensuring that the gear teeth line up. And once we have it fit together, you want to make sure you align the 4 recessed holes in the ring gear with the bearing outer ring holes and thread the black oxide flathead screw through the ring gear and to the 2 bearings, and then you'll tighten that down with the associated nut. And so after we have this done, we're going to add on all the spacers. As you can see, it's mostly done in this video and we're just showing you the last one. And so you'll want to make sure that they go over and under each other, each alternating. And so you'll send screws through them and add on each spacer. Once you have the screws and everything through each other, you'll add a nut to the bottom to keep everything in place. So now we're going to attach the lids to it. So you just choose one of the screws on the arms and you're going to add a nut to the bottom. You just want it to be finger tight so that it's not going to fall off. You don't want to screw it all the way to the top, and you're going to repeat this for each of the screws. Our next step is to tighten down everything in the bearings and ring gear. And so we're going to start by adding washers, as you can see here, we're going to slip them in between the two bearings. So this is why it was important we didn't tighten down the last ones too much. And so we want to slip them in right where the holes are. And to make sure that everything lines up, you can use a screwdriver to press through them. As you can see here, we're just making sure everything lines up. The screwdriver will go all the way through and the washer is completely in place. And once this is done, you add one of the black oxide screws through and loosely add a nut to the bottom of it. And so you're going to repeat this with all of the 4 remaining holes. Next, we're going to work on attaching the central motor mount and the motor to it. So you can see in this picture all of the pieces that you will need. You're going to slide the motor through the hole in the 3D printed piece, and then you will screw it into it. As you can see here, this is the gear that's actually going to be moving it. You're going to slide that up onto the bottom and screw it in. You're then going to screw these into the C-beam, not going in all the way. That way you can slide it down on top of it to sit there. So here's a video demonstration of the screw we used and how far you need to thread it in so that you can sit the motor mount on top of it. You want to make sure that all of the teeth are aligned as we just did there. You then are going to use a hex key to screw the screws in all the way so that your motor mount is tightly against the C-beam. We're now going to attach the upper limit switch mount. And so you're going to place the limit switch on the pegs that come out of it. And then when you put it down on the C-beam, you want to use the included C-beam screws to attach it to that. And place the wire rotating piece into the central hole, ensuring that the top 3 pegs align with the holes in the wire rotating piece. We're now going to add the safety ring. And so this basically just snaps into place on top of the ring gear. Once this is snapped into place, we are going to add a limit switch to the pegs here. This is so that our device can home and know where it's at. You just slide it onto it and it should comfortably roll around the top of the safety ring. Here's a demonstration of how you would connect the wires for the agitator arm to the rest of the unit. Next, we're going to resin dip the lids. To do this, you're going to need a large bucket and a food scale, and then anything that you need to dip. You're going to set the food scale to fluid ounces and pour 16 ounces of resin in. And then you're going to pour 1 teaspoon of the catalyst into the bucket. Then you need to stir it up. Now you're going to dip the lids one at a time, ensuring that they are fully covered by the resin. And you want to make sure that everything you can use for this, you are okay with being disposed of afterwards. After you've dipped the lids, you also need to dip the hook or anything else that will come in contact with the chemicals. Make sure that you let them drip off into the bucket before placing them to dry.